So it is Sara McMann who is starting a new chapter in your athletic career. I mean, not something you haven't done before, of course, taking a pivot. But how does it feel now, this kind of fresh start that you're getting?
So it doesn't feel like a big change only because I'm going to be fist fighting the top women in the world. So it's like it feels like not as different as going from wrestling to MMA. That's like a big shift. This is not cutting weight and killing my body and still fighting extremely tough women in a cage. So it feels like it's like less of a shift in a good way. So
It's
I
a
like
great way to Yeah, great way to put it. Like you said, signing with Bellator, exclusive agreement just recently announced. I mean, I guess I don't know. You said it just there. It's not really so different, but it is starting in a new place, getting to know new faces, new processes. I guess was the thought of doing that intimidating at all, or concerning, or how did it make you feel?
I think that if I had done this like 5 years ago, I think I might have been a little more intimidated. But I really think that promotions outside of the UFC like have really stepped it up. Bellator probably always had like a certain degree of professionalism that was on par with the UFC, but some of the I fought for some smaller promotions, and you could see like a clear difference between the quality of the care or the production or things like that. Um, so I'm happy now that like almost all of the promotions are doing really, really well. Like, a lot of them are getting great funding, great publicity. And so I think it's going to feel like a lot less of a shift than it would have previously.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, we want to focus on moving forward and not the past, but I do have to ask, like, how did the UFC run come to an end? Right? I mean, your opponent misses weight, and next thing you know, you're not fighting for the UFC anymore. I mean, was that your decision? Was it mutual? How did that all play out?
So I think it was mutual. And both of us we seem to be pretty happy and pretty content with it. For me, my manager asked me before my fight with Carol Hosa, she's like, okay, you have this fight and then you have one more. And she said, do you want to test free agency? And I think the contract before this, I would have said no. I want to stay in the UFC. I want to fight for the title. Um, because there wasn't really other options. It was undoubtedly the best place to be. But you fast forward through this fight contract, and I had seen a lot of people that have left and doing really well and saying, I'm getting great sponsorship and I'm getting paid more and I'm getting, like, and they seem genuinely happy. And I talked to people about how promotions were treating them and their experiences. And it seemed really, really positive. And I was like, I don't think all these people are lying. I think that other places are now really great places to fight too. And so I just look at it a little bit different. Like, you see football players, they change teams. It's just completely common. If they get a better contract somewhere else, they don't just stay with the company. They get, and so like that kind of happened to me that, I fought to free agency. I got an amazing offer with a promotion that I've always liked and respected. And I'm like, I think it's the right choice. And the UFC was like, it's the right choice for you for sure. So it's not any like, yeah, it's not anything bad. The only thing that I would have any resentment for was how my last fight played out. But even if that were in the middle of my contract, I just don't like that. I don't like fights falling through, but it's happened since I was an amateur.
Well, and that's the last thing I want to ask you on the old situation was that whole situation about a weight miss. I mean, essentially, as I understand it, was your decision not to take the fight, right? And I guess I wanted to ask you how difficult it was to make that decision, and also if you believe it's one that people should make more often, because it is kind of strange to me sometimes. It's like you don't have to take the fight, but I feel like most fighters feel like, yeah, you kind of have to take the fight. So I don't know. I kind of applauded you for taking a stand there.
So for me, part of it was principle. Because if she had never missed weight and this was just maybe some fluke thing, like it just, happened out of nowhere, I might have been a little more okay with it. But the fact that she was a repeat offender, the fact that, like that so many people were not taking weight cutting seriously to the detriment of the person who did the right thing. Like I had seen it too much and it was really upsetting me. And that's people missing by like 5 pounds. I'm like, 5 pounds? Like, did you just start drinking? Like when the other person's cutting weight, so upset with it and fed up with it. And I was like, unless fighters actually start taking a stand, the promotion and they're not going to do anything to these fighters because they're still getting a fight. What do commissions have to worry? They don't have to worry. And they think that giving you a percentage of your purse is worth that. To a lot of fighters, it isn't. To a lot of fighters, they would much rather you have to make weight. And making weight, like while I did it, it's not easy. So I'm like, I'm going through a hard weight cut. I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what I agreed to. And you're just skipping out on that? Like, nope. And it was a tough choice. The reason why it's hard is because of two things, which I think are hard for all fighters. One, fighters fight. Like there's a very strong instinct in me and every other fighter to be like, oh, this weight class, yeah, I'll take it. Oh, you want me to fight this person? Yeah. And honestly, that's why we have managers and coaches, because they have to protect us from being idiots and saying we have a natural fighting instinct. And like the other reason is that getting offered more money, like it's enticing. But man, I just feel like it's wrong. I'm glad that in wrestling and IBJJF, they just don't even allow people to make that choice. If you miss weight, you're gone. We don't care. You miss it by 0.1. That's it. You didn't make it. So like, I wish that more people would take a stand.
Yeah, I think that's so well said for all the reasons you said, and I don't do that to pick on Aspen by any stretch. I mean, she's a great athlete as well, but I think you taking a stand was admirable, to be honest with you. So let's talk about the free agent process, right? You said, "Hey, I want to test free agency." Was it Bellator and done? Did you hear from other people? Like, what made you say Bellator? That's the spot.
I stayed out of the process because I trust my manager. I trust her, and I know that we talked about it and she said, I'm just going to find out from everybody what's going on, where they're at, their interest level. And the biggest hurdle for me was whether I wanted to fight 145. It's just a different weight class. And so that was like my biggest hurdle to overcome, because the UFC at 135, they have like the more premier weight class. At 145, I just don't believe that's the case. And so then I was like, if I'm going to go up to 145, I just believe that in my heart, Bellator was number one. But I am not going to lie. If Bellator did not offer me a great deal, I would have been like, I can be enticed with more money somewhere else. But as far as like the part of me that really a world championship means something to, Bellator was where my heart was. And I also
Nice.
I heard really, really good things from how they treat fighters. And that's really important to me too. Like it's about the journey and your experience. And if you have a promotion that it's not, it makes it kind of unpleasant or you feel not cared for, like, man, we're still humans, like we don't want to be treated like, just some cog in a wheel or, expendable thing. We want to be appreciated for what we are sacrificing, bringing to the table. So I've just heard a lot of really good things about Bellator. So it just made me kind of lean that way.
Very nice. And you mentioned 45, of course. How different is 45 life changing for you, or is it just fight week changing for you? I mean, how different will 45 be?
So I think in my mind, I built it up to be something that it wasn't, because I had just made 135 for so long. But when I was wrestling, and wrestling is a grueling sport, I wrestled at 63 kilos, which that equals out to in pounds, 138.75. But that is only at world championships and world qualifying events. Every other tournament throughout the year, we have a 2 kilo allowance. So really, the majority of the year in my wrestling career, I competed at 143. So most of my life, I actually wasn't that far off from that weight anyways. And so I think that like I was thinking, oh, 145. I just heard about the weight cuts that were like, oh, they cut 20 and 30 pounds and all that stuff. And I was like, I finally had to say, maybe they do cut a ton of weight, but they can't gain all that back in one day. I know this because I've competed against girls that were this weight and they weren't that big. you know? So I had to like reassure myself that.
I like it. You know, when you mentioned Bellator, you mentioned 145, you got to mention Cris Cyborg, right? So, I mean, I know you're just getting to the promotion, but what do you think? I mean, do you welcome that conversation already? Like, yeah, that's what I'm gunning for. Do you say, hey, let me get my feet wet a little bit? What's your take on the talks of Cyborg already?
That is like, truthfully, like because of her, that is one of the reasons why I wanted to choose that division. Because she's been such a dominant fighter. A win over her is really just it's a great thing on your resume. So I'm just somebody who I still want to face the challenges, you know. So any promotion that I was going to be signing with, my manager made it very clear that I don't just want fights. Like I want to fight and I want to be the best. So and they're completely on board, and Cyborg was super supportive of adding me and stuff like that. So it's going to be great.
Very cool. Well, it's an exciting time in your career. I guess last thing I'll ask you, Sarah, when's the debut? Do we know? I mean, are you targeting anything yet? Is it too early to have that discussion? What's the plan?
Right now, I think that because they're in Japan and they have a big show coming up, it's hard to nail it down. And then the other hard part is that they a lot of their shows they have filled. You know, like they already have fights set. So I'm hoping for March. If they have an opening, that would be wonderful. But if not, then it would give me time to just compete against, you know, heavier people and feel more and more comfortable at this weight. So, but
Fantastic.
I'll keep
Well,
sharpening.
exciting news for you, Sarah. I'm sure now you mentioned that show in Japan. I bet you'll be watching that show with a little bit more interest now. That's your new home.
Exactly, exactly.
It's a great co-promotion that they're doing on New Year's Eve. Well, Sarah, congratulations on the move. I'll let you get back to your day. I know it's still the holidays, so enjoy that time away. Thank you for taking a few minutes, and we look forward to the debut, hopefully in March.
Thank you.